Creating a full stack application in JavaScript using the MVC, which is Model View Controller Architecture, involves several steps. We'll use Node.js with Express for the server, which is the controller. We'll have MongoDB for the database, which will cover the model. And we will use EJS for templating, which is embedded JavaScript. Here's let's go through step by step. First step is to open your terminal, increase the size of this so it's more clear, and make sure that you have uh, Node.js and npm running. You can go to the Node.js website to install it, or look at some of my previous videos on Node.js to how to get Node.js. So first, I'm going to go to my desktop, and I have a folder called as video projects. Inside that, I have nothing right now. I'm going to create a full stack MVC app. I'll call it full stack MVC app. Created the folder. Next, I'm going to go inside that folder, and then I'm going to initialize a node project. Why? And that will probably create my project in there. I'm going to open this folder, and I'll open it in Sublime Text. Next step is to install the dependencies. So for this particular project, I want to, let me just clear this. I want to install a bunch of node modules. One of them is Express to run my server. I want Mongoose to manage my Java MongoDB database. I need EJS to do the templates, JavaScript templates, embedded JavaScript templates, and I want body parser. Body parser is used to parse the body request. When a request comes to the server, it has a body along with it. To parse that JSON request, body parser is used. So that's what I'll install. It'll take a couple of minutes, and it will install it in my package.json. We'll probably see all these things added in here as dependencies. Some more thing that I need is, since I don't want to run the node project over and over again, I'm gonna install nodemon, say save as dev dependency. So that will add as a dev dependencies inside here. So these are all my required dependencies for the node project. Now let's see how we can create a folder structure for my MVC app. So for it's always better to organize your folders first. So I'm going to go here and create a new folder. I'm going to call it controllers. Now in this project, we are going to create a form where you can add users to the database. So for that, I'm going to create a controllers folder, and inside that we'll have controllers. Next thing that I need is models folder. So I'm going to create models. So our models are inside that, controllers are there. Another one that is left is, I think you got it right, views. This will have all my views inside it, which will be the EJS files. I need one more folder for public, where all my public resources are available, like CSS, JavaScript if I want to add some, which are static files. And next one, I need also routes. Routes will help me catch all the different requests and route them at the right place. So that's why I will use the routes folder. And I think that's pretty much it. So I have the controllers, models, views, public, routes, and I need app.js file. So I'll create that. App.js file is my root file for my server. So I'm going to create that. Inside my controllers, I'm going to add my first controller, which is the user controller.js. This is my user controller.js file. Inside my models, I will create my user model.js file. Inside my public folder, I'm going to create one more folder for my CSS files. And if I want to add JavaScript, I can also create one for that, but I'll just keep it simple, and I'm not going to add that many styles to CSS because the main idea is to understand MVC and not the public styles. Here inside this routes file, I'm going to create a user routes.js file. Inside my views, I will create two views. So this project will have two views, one where we'll be displaying all the users and one where we'll be adding all the users. So I'm going to have new file and call it index.ejs. This will be our main landing page for the project, and then for the users I'm going to create another file called as users.ejs file. So these two files should be there. So let's see if we have everything. App, we have pretty much added everything that we need. Controllers have the controller, models have the model. So in this particular, in MVC architecture pattern, the way it works is the controller is actually talking to the model and the view and is the interpreter in between. So to start the project, let's go to app.js file first. Start from here. I'm going to close my package.json. So in app.js, what all do we need? We need to create a server. So I'm going to start with my express variable, and this variable will be this express handle, which is coming from express. Next, I need mongoose handle, which is coming from mongoose. Next, I would need the body parser, handler, which comes from require body parser. This is the middleware. Next, I need the routes, which is user routes, which will be coming from in this particular file. In this particular project, it's inside the routes folder, and I've created user routes. That's my file. That's where I'm going to get that from. Next, let's initialize the application by saying app equal to express. This is how you initialize the app. Next, let's do the database connection. That is using mongoose dot connect. Now if you're running on your local machine, the MongoDB URL is mostly MongoDB ://localhost, and the port that it uses is 27017. This is the default port. Unless you've changed it, then this is something different. And inside that, I want to add the table. Let's say MVC app is what I'm going to call the table. And if I want to give some configuration options, which in this case I'll just skip it, don't need that, leave it empty. Now middleware for body parser. So I'm going to say app use for body parsing, use the body parser object dot URL encoded, and inside this add the configuration as extended to true. So this will help you parse the body requests that come in. Next, I'm going to create another one for express. I want to use the static files inside public. Public folder will be providing static files for us. So that's why you say express.static, and inside there give the location of the folder, which is public in our case. So that takes care of that. Next, for our views, we need to use the engine, the templating engine that we're using, or in this case it's called Vue engine, that we are using is embedded JavaScript, which is EJS. Perfect. Next, let's say where do we get the routes. So that is app.use. The routes are coming from for /users. It's coming from user routes. That's next. And next, finally, the home route, the home page. If someone makes a request to the home page, let's say that is / I am gonna call the request. It will give me request and response in a function which I can run here. And whenever this page comes, I'm gonna say resource dot response dot render, and what am I rendering? Index.ejs file. So what it does is whenever there's a /, it will render this, go to the views folder, get the index file, and then give that back as an HTML to whoever made the request. So which in our case is the browser. Next, I am gonna create a port of 3000 where I will run this server, and I'm gonna say app.listen to request on this particular, on which port do I have to listen, on this port. And when you listen, what will you do when you start listening? What are you going to do? You're going to say console.log. So when it starts listening to request, it's going to say server is running on http colon slash slash localhost colon 3000. I can hard code that, or if you're using a different port, if you want to follow along, I can just use the templating engine and say port here. So it will take the variable value. Always a good thing to use this. Good practice to use this. So that kind of takes care of our app.js with all its home routes. We have view engine declared. We have the middleware defined here. We have connection to database. Perfect. So we have our app.js done. Next, let's go to the model and create the model. So I'm going to go jump in the model first, because without knowing the model of how the structure of the model is, you can't do anything else. So in this case, I'm going to first, since this will be saved in Mongoose, I'm going to create a handle to that. It's called Mongoose. And then I'm going to create the user schema. So to create a user schema, you call this function called as mongoose.schema. This is a function that is available. And here you have to provide what is the schema, or what is the structure of the data of this table. So the table will have a name which is of the type string. We will have another thing that we'll add is, let's add email, which is also string, and let's add a number. So I'll say age of the user is what I'm going to use, and I'll use number in that particular case. Now next, I'm going to say this user equal to mongoose dot model. So I'm going to say this is the schema that I have to apply this schema to this database. So I'm going to say this schema is for the table user, and the schema is user schema. So when I call this, it creates the user schema in the mongoose pattern. And to apply this to create the model, I'm going to say mongoose, I have to create this model with this particular schema. And then now to include it in the entire project, I'm going to say module.exports equal to user. So this will make sure that it's part of the entire project. Now that we're done with model, let's jump into controller. Now the controller is the one that will conversate with model, or make sure it gets the object from there. So for that, first let's say user equal to require, I need the model. So I'm going to say dot dot slash models is where the folder is, and inside that I have user model. Perfect. So that's good. So that will get me a handle to the model in my controller. Now to show all the users, so we'll probably do two things. First, show all the users, and then we'll do one for creating a user. So controller will need to create a function called as get users equal to async. I'll say use async, and the function will have request response. This is an inline function. As you can see, it's assigned to a variable, and here I'm going to say try constant users. So I'm trying to get all the users. I'm going to say await user dot find. So user dot find is a function that is provided by mongoose, which will let me, or mongodb, to find me all. This is more like select star from user table. That's what it means. And once I get that, I'm going to say render these users in the users.ejs file. So display them users dot using the object users. So I'm passing this users as a property to this particular users file, which is users.ejs, and it will insert this or inject the user inside this ejs file. We'll see how to do that in a little while, but for now what we are doing here is we are saying render the users.ejs file on the browser with the users injected in there. Next, let's catch any error if there's error while doing this, because you're dealing with databases. status equal to 500. So I'm going to give a response code of 500 and send the error, whatever the error is. So that kind of completes my get users function. Next, to create a new user. Now if the browser says, oh, I want to create a new user, so that will be using again async. It will have a request and response object, and this will be the function that will be running. Now inside this function, I'm going to probably try to get from the request that was made, I'll probably get name, email, and age from there, because those are the parameters that I want, and those will be coming from request.body. So by doing this, inside the body, whenever a request is made, inside the body there will be name, email, and age. So that is the client's responsibility to provide it, in this case the browser. So we'll probably look at that code when we write the users.ejs, and we'll build a form in there to pass these values. So next, I'm going to say new user. So I want to create a new user equal to new user. This is the function that I can call, and I'll pass name, email, and age to it. So this will call the model and create this new name, email, and age, and create a user object inside the database just by doing this, by saying new user. So that takes care of that. Next, let's see if it worked. Await new user dot save. So this will create that, but it will not save it to database. So this will persist it to the database. Now once that is done, I'm going to say redirect to /user. So it's pretty much refreshing the users page after I enter the users, and display the new user over there by calling the get user. That is again client's responsibility to make that. They call it error response dot status. This is in case there is an error. I'm sending a 500 error and passing that error in here. So that takes care of that. Once that is done, let's go and make sure that the module exports have these two functions in there. The two functions that I'm interested in is get users and create user. So that will make sure that's part of the project. Next, let's go and create the routes. This is important because this will somehow work with the controller to call those functions. So I'm going to say express equal to require. The reason I'm using express in this because router is a part of express, so we'll need that express object, and I need the get users, which we just wrote, get users and create user functions. So I'm going to create a handle to that. That will come from require dot slash. It's inside controllers. That's the name that we have given here. Controllers. Make sure this don't misspell it. And inside that I have user controller file. So that looks good. If it is error, we'll probably see it later. Next, I'm going to create the router by calling express dot router function. This will create my router, and that's why we had express over there. Now for this router, I'm going to say if there is a get request for any of the slash, I will give you get users function, which will be called from the controllers. If there is a post where user is posting something to the slash, I will say this will call the create user function, and also pass all the name, email, and age over here. Module dot exports. Make sure this router is part of the project in the namespace. So that takes care of that. Now that takes care of router. We did the model, controller, router. Now next thing is the views. So we'll go to the index.ejs file first, which is just a hello page. So I am going to start with doc type. HTML is my document type. I will have the HTML language equal to English is what I'm gonna use. Slash HTML, and inside this I will add the head tags, and inside my head I will use first the character set equal to UTF-8. Next I need the title, where that will show up on the top of the browser. Like these are the titles in browser also. There are titles that show up on the top, and slash title. I'm gonna call it home. And next I need to link to that style sheet. Relationship is style sheet, and that style sheet equal to CSS slash. So public is already the static files. All I have to do is inside that, where is my styles? Inside styles.css. So that's my head. Next, let's go to the body, and inside this create the body tag. Inside this I'll just have h1 welcome to the MVC app slash h1. Next I will have a href on the next line equal to, this will take me to users, view users slash a. So this is the URL that will call the users page from here. So there's not much logic in here. It could have been just a static page too, but for now let's keep it that. Next one, we have the users.ejs file. So I'm going to go here, paste this here. I will keep everything same except for this one here. Instead of home, I'm going to call this users, and inside my body, so I don't have to write it again, that's why I did this. Inside my body I will say I want to have my users displayed here. I'm going to give form action equal to slash user. So this will call that slash users route which we've created in there. So what it does, it calls that with method of post. So method of post meaning it will pass the entire details inside the form. uh, so in this case we need the name, age and email. So whatever input fields are there, that will be passed. I'm going to say first input field type equal to text, name equal to name of the user. I'm going to say placeholder equal to name, and I'll say this is a required field. So that's the first one. Second one, I'm going to say type equal to email, name equal to email, and placeholder equal to email required. When you say type is equal to email, it has to be in the format of email, so you don't have to add any uh, any 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 validation for that. This will automatically validate for you. Type equal to, this is for the age, so I'm going to say number, name equal to age, placeholder equal to age, and this is also required field. So I made all the three fields required, and finally the submit button. So I'll say button type equal to submit, and it will say add user slash button. Then close the form, so that's closed, and below it I will display all the users. So I'll create a UL tag, close the UL tag. Inside this I want to loop through all the users there. So if you remember, this particular page is rendered from let's see, where is it, uh, user, not models, user route. It's gonna pass, it's gonna render, let's see, where is my user models, user controllers here. So in here I am rendering the users with the users object. So this will have all my users that are there in the database. So in here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that user object. To use that I'm going to use this percentage. This is the embedded JavaScript templating language format where I can write code. So I'm going to say for each user I want to run this particular, let's get it. So I want to do this function and I need to close it. So always first start with the closing and make sure that everything that you're doing are closed. So this code is closed. And what do I want to do? I want to create an li list item slash li, and inside this list item I want to display percentage equal to user dot name percentage. Close this. So for values you do equal to, for code you will do percentage dash percentage equal to user dot email. Close this, and then their age percentage equal to user dot age and percentage close. I can also say years old. So this many years old, this person. So that's perfect. So that kind of takes care of my li item, displaying everything here. Now what else is left? Let's add some css just for the fun of it. So I'm just say body font family is, use Arial just to keep it simple, sans serif. I'll use h1, and inside h1 I'll just give it h1 a particular color. In this case let's give a lighter color, pound 333. And for the form I can just say margin bottom of 20 pixel. Okay, so that will take care of all my code. Also, let's make sure that inside my package.json, inside script, I can create a shortcut script for it. Whenever I say npm start, what it will do is it will run my, so I don't have to give this complete nodemon app.js code. I'll just have to say npm start. So once this is done, let's go ahead and run our project. So I'm going to say npm start. This will call this particular file, and if there's no errors, that means whatever we wrote was probably right until now, creating the server and running it on this particular URL. I am going to open my browser and run this, and if you see, it opened that web page index.ejs file, welcome to MVC, with the title on the top and view users file here. If I click on this, it will go to this users form. Right now I don't have any users in the database. This is first time I'm opening it, that's why it's all empty. But I can go here and say Vivian, this particular age, with 41, add user. So user is added. Say sam at gmail.com, of age 67, add that user. You can say Mary, of Mary at if I don't give this properly and go skip, if you see, it will say please include. So it's kind of checking, validating for you. Add user, and you can add users. So this is our entire application where we created a Node.js application, everything in JavaScript. And we used MVC architecture for this. Now for this particular file, we created the model file. Now the model is, this represents the data structure in the application. So user model.js defines the schema for user data and interacts with MongoDB to perform database operations. We created the views, which are the index.ejs and user.ejs. We use the embedding JavaScript. This represents the UI of the application, or the view of the application. Index.ejs and users.ejs are the templates that render HTML content for the home page and the user list page respectively. Next, we did also have controller. So MVC, C is the controller. This handles the logic of the application, processing user input, interacting with the model, and rendering the appropriate view, which is user controller.js, contains the logic for fetching users from the database and creating new users. So it does all these things inside it, where it does the appropriate view, rendering appropriate view, and also doing the database and creating users and all those things. So that's why it's called the controller. We also had the routes, which defines the endpoints of the application and map them to the corresponding controller functions. The user route.js sets up the routes for handling user related requests. Now, if you followed all these steps, you were able to create this full stack application using MVC architecture. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments and let me know, and I'll get back to you.